Hello everybody. So we're looking at the amygdala again. In my previous videos, I shared with everybody what I know about the amygdala hijack and how it could be affecting people in the dog culture. So what about dogs? Do they have an amygdala, and are they likely to suffer from one of these crazy emotional responses? Well, yes, they are. Because as you see, dogs also have an amygdala. In the dog, it is connected to psychological arousal, just like with humans. It's the part of the brain that really gets you revved up. And it talks about dogs having a more of a hair trigger on that structure. Well, why would that be? Because dogs don't have a prefrontal lobe like humans do. As a human, when you get into an amygdala hijack, you can talk yourself down from it. You can do breathing exercises. You can do like positive self talk. Like if you're about to have a car crash, you can say, okay, I got airbags, I got anti lock brakes, and you can talk yourself down from having a freak out or a panic attack. Now, dogs can't do that because they don't have the lobes that a human has, they don't have the memory and executive function that a human has, and dogs are also, by nature, brain damaged. Watch a little bit more and I'll show you. So now we have a little study here. It's called Network Analysis Reveals Abnormal Functional Brain Circuitry in Anxious Dogs. So these are some studies that I found about amygdala lesions in dogs. So dogs have lesions inside of their brain on their amygdala, which means their amygdala is not working as good. So in this study, they use imaging, MRIs and other types of imaging to look at dog brains. And here's one of the things they discovered. Let me enlarge this. Okay, so this is, as you see, we got the yellow line and the blue line. Decreased connection strength in dogs with anxiety. So if you want to know more about how they define anxiety, it's in the study. But notice this little connection here. You got the hippocampus, and over here is the amygdala. So let's go look at something about the hippocampus then. So here is what that thing does. It's your short and long-term memory. It's part of your learning and your spatial memory. Now, we already know that dogs suck at all of these things, but also dogs have a weak connection with this hippocampus down to their amygdala. So for the amygdala to be properly modulated, you also have to have short-term memory. You have to remember what hurts, what doesn't hurt, who your friends are, who aren't your friends. Like spatial memory. You go into a dog owner's house, those dogs are romping all over the place. Like, don't you realize the couch is there? They'll run into the couch, they'll run into you, run in between your legs, trip themselves up on chairs. They have poor spatial memory as it is. The short and long term memory. Here comes the mailman. He's hauling a 60-pound bag of dog food up to my porch, like he does every Thursday because they probably have Amazon Prime subscription for their dog or whatever, or they're bringing food for their owner. Well, the dog doesn't remember that. The dog doesn't remember, oh yeah, that's that big bag of food, I'm going to be happy. Nope. The dog throw a fit, bark, growl, run out the front door, run into traffic. And of course, learning is a part of this. So these dogs, when they scan their brain, they find a weak connection with the hippocampus. Notice it's a part of verbal memory. Verbal memory. So you got a dog owner out there that tells their dog to be quiet, come back, get over here, stop it, leave it, leave it. You hear dog owners saying that all the time. Well, how come they have to constantly say that? How come the dog just can't learn it once? Well, because the dog doesn't have this right here, that verbal memory. They got a poor connection with that part of their brain. And if you have a poor connection with the verbal memory, well, if you hear somebody talking or a baby crying or just basically noises that come into your brain, if you can't recognize those as threat or not threat, then you're going to have that fear response, and you're going to respond in a poor way because you don't have verbal memory. It's kind of like if you had a granddad that had really bad mental problems like Alzheimer's, and you walked up to him and said, hey, granddad, you're looking good today. And then he doesn't remember your voice and he snaps at you like, who the hell are you? Why are you talking to me? Well, dogs do the same thing. So remember, the amygdala is a big part of your fear response. So you might remember that a lot of these dog trainers, they'll say a dog attacked out of fear. Well, of course, we're going to argue that and say, how the hell is the dog afraid as it's chewing off the toddler's face or biting the heck out of the UPS driver? How is that fear? Well, let's just give these dog people the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, dogs are attacking out of fear, huh? Well, how do dogs respond to fear? Boom. Aggression, fighting, killing, ripping the flesh off of their fellow dogs out in the woods or in the wild. So this whole fear response, it's hard to accept that. However, if we actually allow that argument to go into the right places and actually examine it, the fear response of a dog is always aggression and fighting, almost always. Yeah, dogs will cower down and run away if they hear like a really loud noise or if they actually get hurt bad enough. But dogs, when they're afraid, they will freaking attack. It's because their brains are screwed up. Remember our little study here, this little pathway here that doesn't have good connectivity. That means the dog brain is not accessing things properly. So the dog gets afraid. The dog doesn't know what to do because it doesn't have proper connection. It doesn't have a prefrontal lobe to modulate it. The dog can't talk itself down. So it's just going to use the amygdala and start fighting, barking, throwing a fit, all that kind of stuff. And so in this study, they base this off of dog anxiety. When they image the dogs, they say the more anxious the dog is, the less proper connectivity it has. Well, what do they say about anxiety though? They say anxiety is what causes dogs to bite. Well, then how are we going to know, as your average person on the street, just how screwed up that dog brain is that we're looking at? How are we going to know if those lobes are properly connected? You tell little kids to look out for the signs of dog attacks. Are your little kids advanced neurologists that have access to MRI machines at the drop of a hat to go see just how screwed up those anxious dogs are? No, they don't. So this proves right off that anytime somebody says we need to look for the signs, no, we need to get the dog out of our house, because there's very good argument that these dogs are just, it's like what people say, it's a brain dead mutant. Yeah, it is. It's a brain dead mutant. Those lobes are not being connected properly. You're putting a pack animal into a house where you spoil it, and it's supposed to live like a pack. It's supposed to develop connections on those lobes from experiencing pain out in the woods in a pack. And you're giving this dog nothing but pleasure and babying all day, and then the lobes fail, and then the dog gets anxiety. It's like any of these studies, they show how anxiety is a big part of attacks. And when you see a dog out in public or you're working in doggy daycare, how do you know that the dog that you're taking care of hasn't had several of these seizures, which means either even more brain damage? Like some of these attacks, this one right here, that's like a 10-minute seizure. 10 minutes of no oxygen to this dog's brain. This dog probably has lesions on many of the lobes in its brain, which means it's not going to be able to process fear properly. When these dogs need to process fear properly, they just go into attack mode. And so yeah, these seizures happen in dogs all the time. Some of them are even caused by flea and tick medications. So how the hell are we going to know? You know, how are we going to know this right here when we see a dog? Man, this is a huge study. But how are we going to know what the hell's going on with these dog lobes? Because they've proven in this study and some other ones that I found that the lobes in the dog's brain, they're just disconnected, or they have more connectivity than normal. They're either like brain dead like a zombie or overstimulated. So that has been another look at the amygdala. And dogs have an amygdala. Dogs are susceptible to the amygdala hijack. And dogs do not have any of the human things needed to get yourself down from an amygdala hijack. So dogs will get fear, dogs will get anxiety, dogs will get over emotional, overly psychologically ramped up, as indicated by these extra high connections and extra low connections. So having a dog in your house, you never know what's going to happen. And it's like people joke, they call them brain dead mutants, but yeah, there's definitely something going on in these dog brains, and studies prove it. So watch out for the amygdala hijack. See you guys in the next one.